Hey, my name's Mara, also known as Robot on the Trail, and today I'm going to be telling you guys about the gear that I hiked with on the Appalachian Trail in 2019, including the clothes that I hiked in, what I sent home, and the things that I picked up along the way. So, let's get started. Starting with the shorts that I wore, these are a pair of Lululemon reversible shorts. I only ever wore them on this side though, and they never ripped, there's no holes in them, they held up super well all the way from Springer until Katahdin, so I really liked these, and I'll probably be wearing them again for my next hike. Then on the top I wore this short sleeve Under Armour shirt. I got this sometime around Damascus after I sent home my long sleeve sun shirt because I realized that there's not a whole lot of sun on the Appalachian Trail, and along with that I also sent home my sports bra because it was uncomfortable and I didn't really need it, so got rid of that. And then this came with me all the way to Katahdin. The material was really good, it dried out super quickly, and it didn't get that smelly even after going 9 days without being washed. So I love this shirt. On my head I wore this Kandahar Lodge Whitefish Montana baseball cap. It was my favorite hat before the Appalachian Trail, on the trail, and it still is. I wore this every single day. It kept the sun out of my eyes, it kept the rain out of my eyes, which was very handy because it rained a ton on the Appalachian Trail. And it also helped to cover up my bad hair days after going many days in a row without showering. Then I have my fanny pack, which I also got in Damascus, Virginia. In here I just had my phone, wallet, and earbuds. And then the smaller pocket I had my chapstick and a knife. This was also really handy to have in town because I could leave my backpack at the hostel or hotel or wherever we were and just carry the fanny pack to go do my laundry and get groceries. The shoes that I wore were Ultra Trail Runners. I usually went with the Lone Peaks. They are zero drop, super lightweight, very comfortable, and since they're mesh, they dried out really quickly, which was really important to me since it would rain for 5 days in a row. You want to have a pair of shoes that can get somewhat dry overnight. Then the trekking poles that I used are a pair of Lecky poles. I didn't start off with these, I started with a pair of REI hiking poles. Those ones ended up getting bent and then I left them on a taxi, so I picked up these ones. They were kind of expensive, but they lasted me a really long time and I'll be using them on future hikes. On to the pack that I used. I had a Hyperlight Southwest 2400. I used this pack for the entire trail. The only time it really ever gave me any trouble was in the last few weeks when the shoulder pad and hip pad, they started getting kind of thin and it got uncomfortable, but for the most part it was a great pack. It's fully waterproof to a certain point. Some water did get in through the bottom seams down here, but since everything inside the pack is in a dry sack, nothing important ever got wet. So everything on the outside, starting with my Crocs, these were my camp shoes. They have a little robot on them. I put these on every day once I was done hiking. They were really nice to have so I could dry out my feet, get out of my trail runners, and just put on something else. I also used them for some river crossings so that I wouldn't get my shoes totally soaked, and I used them every day. Then on the outside, I kept my pot. It's just a $15 pot from Walmart, but it lasted me the entire trip. It's kind of big, but I could fit an entire box of Kraft mac and cheese in here, so that was awesome. I also kept my tent poles on the outside. I left them in their bag for the entire trail because I thought if they got soaking wet every day that they would start rusting and that the bag would help keep some water off of them. I also usually kept a 1 liter Smart water bottle in the side, and that one I would screw my filter onto. I had a Sawyer squeeze and I just drank straight out of the bottle with this. I really liked this filter. I could fill up the bottle and just keep hiking without having to sit and squeeze out the water into a clean water bottle from the dirty water bottle, and it just saved me a lot of time. Then I also had a half a liter water bottle on the other side. That was really the most water I ever needed, was about 1.5 liters. Sometimes I would carry a full 2 liters, but 1.5 liters was usually fine since there's so much water on the trail. Then inside of this front pocket, I have my headlamp. It's a black diamond headlamp. I got this after I left the original headlamp I started with in a privy, so I ended up getting this one. It has a red light on it, which was really good for waking up early or being the last one to go to bed so that I wouldn't be blinding people with my light. Then I kept my toiletries in the front pocket. I just have my toothbrush and toothpaste, some lotion, some more chapstick, a couple extra hair ties, tweezers, and some Advil. I also had Neosporin in here, which is about the extent of my first aid kit. I never really needed anything other than that. Plus, everyone around me had a first aid kit, so I didn't feel like I needed to carry a whole bunch of other stuff. Then I also have my toilet paper and baby wipes in the front pocket. And in this little dry sack, I kept my spot device, which isn't totally necessary to hike the Appalachian Trail, but it was kind of a peace of mind to be able to call for help if I got lost or hurt, and I could also send messages home to my family every night saying that I was okay. And the last thing in the front pocket is my raincoat. I wore just an REI brand raincoat. It was really waterproof. It kept me dry when I needed to be dry, and it was also great for windy days or just an extra layer in the cold. I originally started off with a pair of rain pants, but I got rid of those pretty early on since I was hiking in my shorts every day. It didn't really matter if my legs got wet, and I didn't really need them for warmth ever. Then in my hip pockets, I just kept hand sanitizer and all of my snacks in both of these pockets. And I had my watch attached to the outside. I don't know why I didn't like wearing it, I just preferred having it hooked onto my backpack. Okay, now for the inside of my pack. I kept my puffy coat on top, which was an Arc'teryx synthetic jacket. It wasn't super warm. I was really cold at at the start of my hike, even with all of my layers on. I wished this would have been a little bit warmer, but after the first month and a half to 2 months, I didn't really need that warm of a jacket anymore, so this ended up being pretty good for the rest of the trail. Then I liked to keep my food pretty close to the top so that I could have easy access to any extra snacks. This isn't the bag that I originally kept my food in. I threw that away as soon as I was done with the trail because it smelled pretty good. So inside I just have my fuel canister, my stove, which is an MSR pocket rocket, and a lighter. And last I have my spoon. I ended up going through about 5 of these because I kept losing them or breaking them, but I liked having the long-handled spoon so that it could get all the way down to the bottom of my pot. Then I have my electronics bag, which is inside of a dry sack. And I have my Anchor power bank, and it's a little bit big for what I needed, but I never ran out of battery. I could get a lot of charges out of this, which was really nice. Then I had my 2 charging cables, one for my phone and one for the Anchor battery. I used a dual port charging block so that I could charge the battery and my phone at the same time. And that's everything that I had in my electronics bag. Then the tent that I used, I kept in a dry sack, which didn't really need a dry sack since it was getting soaking wet every night anyway. But I used the Marmot Force one-person tent. It definitely could have been more waterproof. There were a lot of nights that I woke up pretty soaking wet with water dripping on me from my roof, but I kept it from Springer to Katahdin, so I guess it must not have been that bad for me to switch it out. I put my sleeping pad along the back of my backpack, just as a little bit of extra padding since the pack is frameless. And I used this Thermarest Neo Air women's pad. I got it at Harper's Ferry because my original pad that was only about half length, around that long, ended up popping, and so I decided to switch to the full length. Then this one ended up popping, but I had a friend who lent me some tape and I got it all patched up and it was fine for the rest of the way. I kept my sleeping bag in this dry compression sack. The bag that I used for the entire trail was an Enlightened Equipment 10-degree bag. It was a little cold in the beginning of the trail since I started in March and it got below freezing almost every single night. But as soon as we were done with the freezing weather, this bag was just fine. And I kept a silk sleeping bag liner inside of it, which didn't do a whole lot for warmth, but it definitely kept my bag from smelling too bad. And last, on the very bottom, I kept my clothes in this Hyperlight stuff sack, which perfectly fits the bottom of the bag. And I carried 3 pairs of socks to hike in, which I know is a lot and probably more than most people carry, but I liked having 3 since it was raining so much on the trail. It was good to be able to wake up and put on a fresh pair of socks instead of putting on the same wet ones that you've been wearing for 3 days straight. I also really liked having the ankle length socks. I just thought they were more comfortable and better for hiking in the rain and the sun. Then I kept one pair of socks that I slept in. I ended up sending these home in the last month or so of the trail since it was pretty warm every night and I wasn't really sleeping in them anymore. But I liked having a dry pair of socks that were warm that I could put on for sleeping. I had a pair of leggings for the entire trail. I hiked in them occasionally when it was really cold in the beginning, but mostly I just slept in them or wore them in town when I was doing my laundry. And I also had a pair of cotton shorts that I slept in when it started getting really hot outside. It was just kind of nice to have something cotton that I could put on. I know cotton kills, but it was just nice to feel like a normal person wearing cotton for once. Then I also slept in a Lululemon tank top, and I wore it a lot in town when I was doing laundry with my shorts, just so that I didn't have to walk around in my rain gear. Instead, I could put on some actual clothes. And then I had this long sleeve shirt that someone actually gave me around my second month on trail. His name was Caboose, and he didn't need it anymore, so he offered it to me and I graciously accepted it. I wore it so much. I hiked in it, I slept in it, I wore it in town. I wore this shirt all the time. It was a little bit big on me and took up a lot of space, but it was well worth it because it ended up being my favorite shirt. So shout out to Caboose for giving me your shirt. And last, I hiked in 2 pairs of underwear. I just had 2 I could switch out. Usually lasted me enough time to do my laundry or just wash them in a river or something. Some of the things I ended up getting rid of along the way were my tent footprint. That was just extra weight that I didn't really need. I got rid of my fleece, which was nice to have in the beginning when it was super cold out, but eventually it just got too warm for that. I had a hat and a pair of gloves that I sent home, and then a waterproof liner for my gloves that I also sent home. I had a little tiny hairbrush. That got sent home. I went about 4.5 months without combing my hair and never had any issues. My first aid kit, I started with a full first aid kit and like I said, ended up with just Neosporin. Thanks for watching.